Welcome and welcome back to the Marketing Made Inclusive podcast. I am your host, Joyann Boyce, and today we are joined by, I feel like everyone's my longtime friend, but Jon actually is, since I started the business, seen the sprouts of an agency, and it's blossomed into many things, but Jon has been a huge inspiration to me. Jon, hi.
Hello, Joy. What a Joyann. Sorry, I always do that.
You knew me as Joy originally. It's
so inspirational that I can't do the right name. That's a lovely set of things to say. My goodness, how sweet. Thank you.
Yes, you're the first. Okay, this adds a little context of why
Okay.
I also admire you, because you're the first white man in marketing to be honest with me.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And in a very straight talking, we spoke. I think our first conversations were always about marketing. But anyways, let the people know who you are, what you do, and tell them a little bit about you.
Okay. My name's Jon Payne. The top of my list on my CV now is friend of Joyann Boyce. That's huge. I mean, it might even put the years. Might put it on my LinkedIn profile. Years active. Must be like 8 or something like. Maybe even more. How long have you been in business?
No, it's coming. It's 2017. So yeah, it's been a minute, but then COVID years are weird years.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh, they were weird. Before being friend of Joyann Boyce, I founded with my wife a company called Noisy Little Monkey, which was a SEO and marketing automation company, and we've recently exited that business, I believe is how you say it.
Yes.
Exactly. We haven't got enough money to retire, so I will be doing other stuff in future. Not quite sure what, but yeah, probably around ethical growth in business, because that was the thing that really was the fun bit of doing what we did. I think was doing all the marketing and stuff, but trying to run a business that profitably, that then also was ethical. And lots of people came to us and were friendly with us because of that kind of stuff, and throwing ourselves into challenging environments. So yeah, we'll probably do something like that, because Nick's really good at coaching teams and helping leaders figure out where they want to go, and I'm good at sales and marketing for founders, really. So yeah, that's
you
it.
missed 2 other things. You ran the HubSpot group.
We did. Yeah, we ran
had
2
a whole
HubSpot
conference.
Groups.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There were other things you've been doing, Jon.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, we ran the Bristol HubSpot group, and then we ran the worldwide HubSpot group for sales enablement, where which would mean that people from all over would get up early to listen to me and Katie Roberts of Atomic Smash, excellent WordPress web developers in Bristol, because she and I would run that together. People would get up in the other side of Canada at 4 a.m. to get to ask a question about sales enablement that either me and Katie, or Katie and Andy, one of your previous guests, would answer. And we also ran Digital Gaggle. Not quite sure what we're going to do with that. We had some great speakers there. One, Joyann Boyce, was kind enough to grace us with their presence once. And I think way back then, that was, you were kind of you were a bit nervous about that talk.
I was a bit nervous. That was also my first inclusive marketing style talk ever.
And it was banging, wasn't it? Tears. You absolutely. There was dry eyes in the house, but only from people who were made of stone. Yeah, it was really good, and really useful and really inspirational. So I think we'll probably do something with Digital Gaggle, unless someone wants to give me a ridiculous amount of money for it. But what we'll probably, I don't know, Digital Gaggle will probably come back in some form, and be more probably about, I don't know, whether it comes back as something that's more about ethical business growth, or whether it is really focused on marketing and sales. But it was never, it was always 50% how to be not an arsehole in business or not an arsehole in this or that. So that should have been a strapline.
It's a
Not an
marketing
arsehole.
conference about not being an asshole in marketing.
Yeah.
Literally.
Wow. We should have billed it as that. It would have been massive by now.
Because I remember, I don't want to mix it up, but I do think you had Steve Bartlett one year, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
He was an incredible speaker even way back then. His ability to control a room was phenomenal. He walked on, he basically, Joy, he rolled out of the taxi, not because he was pissed. The guy was always moving, probably still is. Rolled out of a taxi that was still moving with a bloke with a video camera following him. And I was like that, oh, hello, I'm John. And he was like that, yeah, I'm Stephen. And I was like that, who's this guy? Like pointing behind him. And he's like that, that's my videographer. We're recording every day of what I do. And I'm like that, oh. And in my head, it was just like alarm bells. This man's a lunatic. And then he kind of rolled up on stage after causing us considerable problems because he didn't tell us he had a brand new Mac. And we'd said, tell us if you got a brand new Mac because we haven't got an adapter. Lovely guy ran to his car in the car park to get an adapter for not at that point famous Stephen Bartlett not at that point famous Stephen Bartlett. Anyway, got him all set up. All of this chaos had ensued. He was there late. It was just like rock star behavior. And I kind of love that, particularly because he was so young. Like, it was like, of course you should behave like this. If you're a rock star of business at this age, you should behave a bit like a rock star. And then he just walked up and he went, I mean, I can't do it for as long as he did.
Like, seriously, just silence.
Silence for a minute. I timed it. As he breathed in, I thought, oh, he's going for silence. And I looked at my watch and just looked at the seconds, and he was silent for about 58 seconds in front of 200 people. And you couldn't have heard a pin. You could have heard a pin drop. It was silent in there. And then he went, I'm Stephen Bartlett, or something like that. No, he didn't even start like that. He just started off on, my mum told me not to do X or whatever. I went into his story a bit.
Yeah, that story. He had that for a while.
Yeah. I actually don't really agree with the ethics of what Social Chain did. They nicked. I mean, it's like what Unilad do and all of that. Those people now, they, in my opinion, just thinking it's both of us that might get sued because this is your podcast. So I'll say, in my opinion, they nick content from other people, put some nice graphics on the front, and then use it to grow their audience. And I don't like the stealing of content from other creators. In my opinion, I'm not saying they definitely do that.
It was a wild time back in those days. I feel like social media has matured a little bit. It's calmed down. Now everyone's doing the AI things and not really doing anything wild with social.
Yeah.
But back in the Social Chain days, and then the way people used to have to send them like Lego houses to apply for jobs and stuff. But Stephen's doing different things nowadays.
He is.
He's a little bit well known now.
Yeah, I was going to say he's done all right for himself. I mean, I think we were quite proud of ourselves for about 12 months. The video of him doing Digital Gaggle was the most popular one on his YouTube channel. And we're just amazed. He tried to go without saying goodbye to Claire Dibben, our marketing manager, who now works at CareScribe, she'd be worth a conversation. Actually, they do amazing things. But yeah, he tried to go without saying goodbye. So Claire quite aggressively chased him down the street and put her foot in the taxi door as he was trying to close it, so that she could give him his bottle of wine and his thank you card in the most passive way, aggressive way possible.
It's like, and you will be thankful for speaking here. Yes.
Yeah. She gave him the telling off. You say thank you to people and you say goodbye to people, Stephen. That's how you should be. And I think he just was like going off. He was already somewhere else in his head, but he did say thank you and goodbye.
I love it. We've already gone on the stories, but let me come back. Let me come back. No, it's amazing because all of the things you've done, you've had such a long career, but I'm curious to know,
Ouch.
one of the questions, you're still young, John, you're still young. Anyways, one of the questions I would love to ask is, what does inclusive marketing mean to you?
If you're listening to this, Joy has just asked an old, white, bald dude what inclusive marketing means to him. And obviously it means a bloody headache, Joy. All that rubbish I have to do now. No, it doesn't mean that. It's a really good question because it's so broad, isn't it? I think if I put on my old hat of running a digital marketing agency, inclusive marketing meant to me that, and still means to me, although I'm not doing so much marketing right now, means that you, as much as possible, don't exclude people from resonating with your message. And so a really good example of that, like part of the reason that I really enjoy hanging out with you when we're talking about business, the reason I really enjoy hanging out with you is we're possibly drunk and laughing hysterically. But when we're talking about business and stuff, you remind me of the stuff that I easily forget because I'm in the bubble of being an old white dude and everything's already representative of me and my gang. And so, reminding me that, I think, is it your story of the when you came to the UK was the first time you realised that you were black?
Yeah.
And that was like that. When you said that to me, of course, I'd heard similar things about, I don't see myself represented and all of that kind of stuff. But the first time realizing a difference must have been, well, clearly it had an impact, and look at you. But yeah, so that often resonates with me is okay, well, how can we make sure that if we are using visuals, or if we're using visuals, that we are representing lots of different aspects of what we see in the world around us. And certainly when I'm thinking about when we're working with clients in Bristol, which is a lovely, diverse city, is, well, I set myself like mini goals and I'll talk to the client about them. Don't ever write them down because we end up having to, go through legal and all of that kind of stuff. But I like to go, well, look, if 1 in 5 people in your city is black, or a person of color, if that's a phrase that's okay, why have we got 10 people in this advert and they're all white? And in fact, why is only one of them a woman? Okay, so can we? And of course, they then go, well, we don't have any people who work here who are black. Oh, really? What a surprise! Maybe it's because everything you do is, vanilla.
Feeds into that cycle. How does that work with? So, because I know the clients that you've worked with in the past tend to be, lack of a better analogy, suit and ties type of environments.
Yeah.
How does it, being the agency coming from the outside, bringing that, and being, as you've described yourself, a white, bald man, raising that as well? Because I think there's this expectation that it's not the person that looks like them that's going to raise it to them. How does that conversation happen?
Actually, I had a really interesting conversation with Andy Jarvis about this. He of XEMO Marketing, or XMO Marketing. I don't know how you say it. Andy, just put a pronunciation guide on your website, please. But anyway, because I was like, someone asked me to do a talk about inclusivity to a, what do you call them, a steering committee for a like an association or a membership organization. So it was like not the Chartered Institute of Accountants, but it was like, okay, they have the Chartered Institute runs the membership stuff and for all of the accountants. It was like that. I can't remember what the organization was for. And I was like that. I don't think you need me coming along to speak about inclusivity, because I haven't lived this. I haven't lived being excluded. I'm able-bodied, straight. I don't have dyslexia or anything, my biggest problem is all of those things actually that I'm just so typical. If you open up a marketing brochure, it's not a problem at all. But yeah, so I was like, I don't think that's good, and I was talking to Andy about it, and he said, no, I think it is good, and he touched on a point that maybe I hadn't considered, is I'm quite safe. I mean, I'm not, obviously. I'm going to go off like a fucking hand grenade at some point. But I'm quite a safe person. If you're a suit and tie old white dude who's never met anybody in a wheelchair, or struggles with people who are different genders, different colours, different cultures, all of that kind of stuff, because you've come out of your Cotswold town and there's 4 of you there and you're all related to each other.
Oh, gosh.
It was going to be a huge...
Found another way to offend. Like, you avoided so many minefields just now. But just found a way. I apologize to the people of the Cotswolds.
Offend the majority, Joyann. That's
the goal.
That's always the goal. Offend the majority. But yeah, if you're that kind of person, it's probably a bit easier coming from someone who looks and sounds like you, although I sound much more working class than most of those people, than perhaps I've already got my defences up when someone like you walks in the room and goes, I'm here to talk to you. And you don't do this because obviously you're so adept at coping with those ridiculous barriers that people are putting up. But yeah, I don't think the barriers go up when I start talking about it until they realise that actually I'm quite pro this inclusivity stuff, and I do think you should make some changes, and you're not going to go out of the room today until you've figured out what change is going to make. But yeah, I feel often I used to have a certain amount of I've got shame issues about lots of things. So, but specifically being the bloke that would be rolled out to do a talk. Well, what a surprise! It's another white guy on the stage. But now I realise actually that maybe I'm the tip of the spear that can make the crack a little bit bigger so that other people can follow through. So it's not quite standing on the shoulders of giants. I suppose it's more like following a termite.
I think it's maybe even like a sleeper agent in the marketing sense, because I can see for many reasons an agency, a CMO, thinking, if I go with this agency led by Jon, he'll just agree with everything I said. And because the other thing they like to do, and I'm sorry if I'm generalizing a lot of CMOs, is accuse everything on the new generation. Yeah. They love to be like, oh, it's the new generation that are doing this, or they're making us use inclusive language, So I can see them approaching you and you're like, actually, all that stuff they're saying, I'm going to implement it anyways.
Yeah. Well, and also because you're able to point to often anecdotal evidence, but also decent studies that you've shared in the past where you can go, look, if we engage with a wider community and are more inclusive, well, we'll make more money. And always even the most, you have to, at that point, if they're going to push back, they're an ist of some kind.
Have you ever had a client or a potential client push back?
Yeah, we did.
What?
We had one. We fired them, unfortunately, because they were very wealthy.
So what stage did? Okay,
they've been a client for about 2 or 3 years on a chunky retainer.
So they were already a client.
Yeah. And so this was the issue that first came up, and everybody who's heard me tell this story in the past knows the client, but I'm not going to mention them on here because they've actually just been sold, and the guy who's an arsehole is leaving, although he is leaving with approximately 22 million more quid than he started with, which is sad, but there we are. Arseholes tend to prosper, it seems. But yeah, so we were working with them, and they had multinational websites. So they're different language. And they came to us originally because they had a problem that they couldn't rank for their main service that they offered, and so we helped them rebuild their website with another agency, because we just did the SEO and the kind of framework stuff, and some and the another agency built their website, and we made it multilingual, so that we did it in a really search engine optimized friendly way with all of these different languages, and we made it because it was WordPress, so they could just add on more languages, and it would handle the canonicals and the alt lang tags and all of that, and every time they added on a new WordPress site, their multi WordPress install. And I had a quarterly review with the senior team, and I'd already brought this up with the marketing team, who'd said, "Oh, well, yeah, we can't change that. That's the decision from, let's call him Dave. No, let's call him John, because he's a white guy in marketing, and we're all called John." So we've talked to John about this, and yeah, no, he doesn't think it's a problem. And my problem that I had was they had. You could look at their different offices. So you could look at Houston, Texas. You could look at Boston, Massachusetts. I can't say that.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, that'll do. Better. My mum used to say massive two shits, and now I can't say anything else. I was trying to edit that, and I've said it anyway. Massachusetts. And London, England. Lyon, France. Africa. For that, and I'm like that. So wait a minute, we've got all of these. I can do actually by city in every other part of the world, but in Africa, where are you? And they're like Nairobi, and I'm like that. Well, then surely that's Nairobi, Kenya, right? Yeah, that's what you should have. Well, no, because we serve the whole of Africa. But you don't serve. You barely even serve the whole of France from Lyon. Africa is, regardless of what your map tells you, Africa is way bigger. I'm like that. Why don't? And also, it will make it much more targeted for the people you want to serve in the community of Nairobi, because you'll get loads of business from there rather than having to go to Chad.
And filtering it out and locations and all that. So Very logical recommendation.
Yeah. But yeah, and I was like that also. Just the optics of that really suck. They're really, really imperialist and gross. And they were like, and he was like that. No, I don't need to change it because for me, we're targeting all of Africa. And we toed and froed. And I was like that. You're not targeting all of Africa. You're not targeting either of the Sudans, because they're not desperate for your products there right now. There was a war, fairly hefty war going on. Anyway, so it came to them having the next big chunk of work, and I said, well, because you want to go out to tender, we'll use our retainer to help you write the tender. Tip to anybody who runs a marketing business: always use your retainer to help them write the tender, because then you'll win the tender. But this was one we intended not to apply for. So we wrote the tender, and they phoned us up like 3 days before the end, and they went, "Oh, we haven't had your tendering." And I was like that, "Oh, we're not tendering for it. You're going to absolutely screw up the implementation that we've described. You can come back to us when it all goes wrong, when you're ready to change, when you're ready to make those changes." And they came back to us when they'd made the changes, and they'd screwed up everything for about a year. But yeah, and by that point, the website did say Nairobi, Kenya. I think they opened up another African office. I think they were in Lagos as well. And it was like, well done.
Funny that. Like, now you want to be specific. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we didn't. I don't think we told them that's why we were firing them, but it was definitely, they knew that. Well, I just had a stand-up row with their managing director and founder. So
fair. And I think that is some of the elements of being again, I can't not use the term now because in my head, a sleeper agent, that you're able to do those things.
Yeah.
You're able to push back on those things. Whereas in certain experiences, I always say sometimes when I work with teams and companies, I feel like they bring me in to say the things that they wanted to say, but they can't.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
the external person. I go in, I say these things, and I can leave because they've heard it.
yeah,
But when they're saying it internally or in-house, they're like, "Oh no, don't worry. That's just your opinion, or it's just your feeling." Like they
yeah,
want to push it
exactly.
aside.
Or it's just you being a millennial or whatever the new one is, Generation Gen Z or
Gen
whatever.
Gen Z, Gen Alpha, which I
What,
find
Gen
a bit,
Alpha?
yeah, Gen Alpha's after Gen Z.
How old are those people?
I think they're like 10.
Oh, okay. So they're nearly in charge.
Always, yeah. I'm becoming, no, I'm still a millennial. Never mind. I was gonna say,
Yeah, I'm Gen X. I hate all of you other generations. That's my job.
you do it well. You do it. Okay, so that's really fascinating to take that stance with a client and to essentially let them go and based on the fact they're not willing to change. And the other element I love about that story is such a practical, outside of the inclusive marketing bit and the general, Africa is a continent, not a place.
Yeah,
There's a general like that was SEO advice. That was
yeah,
and that's what I love about inclusive marketing. It's like, yes, we have the elements of diversity and inclusion in there, but it's wrapped in practicalities. It's
yeah,
wrapped in this will, one, make your website reach more people, make you more money. It's still wrapped in marketing.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, in fact, when you were saying that, I thought, oh, there's a load of other clients that we just didn't win because we wouldn't. So, someone once said to me, "Don't ship shit. We don't ship shit. We only ship quality."
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I like that. And so we always, from an SEO perspective, I and the rest of the team always felt, well, if it isn't accessible online, then it's not good for SEO. It's not the be all and end all. There's plenty of inaccessible sites that perform really well, but actually, we know that accessibility is normally gives it a bit of an uplift,
Mhm.
but also it just makes the web a better place. Like the amount of times I said to people, just put alt text on your images because tomorrow you'll rank better because you've got a million images, and it just makes the web a better place. And often they'd go, "Oh, let's do it for that." Okay, we'll dedicate, which is always lovely.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and we would turn down business from people who would say, "Well, we don't want to build it like that. We still want your SEO, but we're just not going to build an accessible website." And we'd say, "Well, that's step one for us. So then no work."
So,
Um,
how did you guys incorporate that accessibility element into the building of the site? And like, what did that process look like?
so from a initially, when it was just me, we would follow um, W3C guidelines.
Mhm.
God, that was years ago, really, um, which were put together again. Another Bristol awesome person, Leonie Watson. She was a software developer
Mhm.
and suffered from diabetes. Didn't treat the diabetes well. She would say this. It's not me just judging lovely Leonie. Didn't treat the diabetes well and went blind as a result while she was learning to code.
Wow.
And was very angry about stuff. And eventually, she's not so angry anymore, which is probably good for her. But I really loved her angry because she would be very vociferous about W3C stuff. And she worked with Tim Berners-Lee on the original W3C
Whoa.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so, um, yeah, so we would do W3C compliance on everything, cascading style sheets and HTML. And then the more accessibility you could build in that was beyond that. So, like, tab order on a keyboard for people who weren't able necessarily to use mouse or trackpads. Um, uh, Being able to make the text larger and smaller. I mean, typically now that's done, you can do that within the browser, so most people have that set, or being able to make make all of the text white on black because that's easier for you to read. And like, it started off with W3C and then it just got more and more progressive, and then eventually to the point where you're testing colors for contrast because color blindness and dyslexia and all of this kind of stuff. And started out with me going, oh, this is good for search, and it's also will make the web a better place. These are good things. And then Steve Mitchell, our head of SEO, carried it on, and Harry Locke, who was worked for Noise Little Monkey for 2 or 3 years, came along and went, we do all of this stuff that's an SEO audit, but we don't do a full accessibility audit as part of it. And we weren't an accessibility company. So it was silly for us to say, well, we're going to do a full accessibility audit, but we could do a pretty in-depth one. So and Harry brought in you have an SEO audit, and as part of that, it's an accessibility audit, and that has as much of a. Before it was like all text and cascading sales sheets and stuff like that. Then it had its own big section in our audit, and we would do that for every client. Every client got an audit that was like, gosh, sometimes hundreds of pages long on things that they should change, and accessibility was probably 25 pages of it, and it would normally be in the top 10 recommendations. It would be in the top 5 every time, because typically people just don't do it. They
just upload the picture and that's it. They just go on about the day.
Yeah, exactly. Or they go, oh, like, these are our corporate colours, and then we go, your corporate colours are terrible for people with dyslexia. Stop putting that blue on a grey background.
Yeah. Oh, I always forget your suit and tie clients. Oh, they do not inspire me.
No. But the nice thing was, God, I'm really going on. But someone, Jamie Riddell, who was one of the early pioneers of SEO, told me once that he went for clients that were rich, famous, or inspired, because the inspired ones often don't have much money, but they're the ones that you can do really cool stuff with. The famous ones, you really need some logos on your website, so that people go, oh yeah, I've heard of those people. And the rich ones pay for the work that you do for the inspired ones, and the famous ones who do you have to do a discount to get their name on your website. So yeah, the suit and tie clients were the worst, but they paid for us to do good stuff for inspirational clients.
With the accessibility audit, did you upsell it or did you just include it? Or like
it's just included.
It was just included, so it wasn't upsell costs. Because that's really interesting. Because there are companies out there that just do accessibility audits and sell that as a service. So why did you decide not to have it as an add-on?
Because otherwise people wouldn't have paid for it. Sometimes you just got to force it on. And we would also say to them, there are companies that will do a proper version of this accessibility audit that's like our SEO audit and is hundreds of pages long, and they'll have real humans do stuff. This is a lightweight, but it wasn't a lightweight version of it, but we would describe it as a lightweight version of it, because what we didn't want to do is go, well, don't go to, I can't remember the name of any of the agencies that do it now, but don't go to X agency who can do this for you. Take this as inspiration and go to them once you've fixed these things, and then go and do it, because otherwise they're going to waste their time on all of this shit that just is good manners. Like, so yeah. But yeah, if we'd have said to people, oh, and there's more money for the accessibility, people have gone, oh no, I just want better rankings, because people look at finance first, obviously.
But that must inspire your company culture in terms of people coming in to the team over the years that you've been hiring. That element of, no, we just do this because it should be done. Yeah. Must have influenced how people approached your work overall in the company.
So. Yeah, I think so. I think looking back on it now, and looking back on the pressure that we put ourselves and everybody else under during the pandemic, when business was hard to come by, maybe we could have framed that differently. Because it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Because there was a culture of always going the extra mile. And so many businesses pay lip service to that, but the Noisy Little Monkey team really did go the extra mile pretty much all the time. Unfortunately, that's quite difficult to switch off, and so in truth, we probably went too far, too many times, which made profitability not so good, and put our team under more pressure than they needed to be. So if there was any lessons that I would learn from something like that, is like, that culture of going, do this because it's right. Tell them this because it's the truth. And don't sugarcoat it because you're a nice human being, but don't sugarcoat it to the point where they don't make a change. Fight your freaking corner. And if you need me to come in and throw chairs around in the boardroom, brilliant, that's what I'll do. And I think probably at that, so at times we by doing that put our staff under more pressure than we would have wanted to, because they felt that they had to keep doing that, when actually, you could just go, John, can you go and shout at these people, please? But so that we could have got the balance better towards the end. I think that was part of the reason I wanted to get out, is everybody was working their socks off, and it's like, wait a minute, not everybody works like this.
Yeah, it's a hard thing.
There are some people who have a job where they don't work really hard, really intensely, all day, every day. So
no, it is difficult, and that if that's the culture that you've been, even from my experience, going into organizations and trying to push for change, and you're constantly, every clear marketing decision you're making is being pushed back like a diversity and inclusion decision, even though they're one and the same. We all know when budgets get cut, it's diversity and inclusion, then it's marketing, are the two areas that big organizations do. Yeah. So during COVID, I can see how that could impact, and then everyone's well-being as well being impact on top of. It's one thing when you have passion for something and everything else in your world is okay. You can go for a full passion. But when the world is essentially on fire, and then your job where you're passionate, people are constantly pushing back at the right way to do things, or the most ethical way to do things, I can see those two colliding.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Yeah.
I can see those two colliding. I still think, you have the three ones: famous, suit and ties, and then passionate. Yeah.
Passionate and inspiring. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're working in an agency world without the inspiring ones, it's just cranking that handle to sell more shit the world that doesn't need. We'd say that a lot to our clients. This just feels like we're selling shit the world doesn't need. Let's try and make the world a better place while we're selling whatever it is you sell. Oh, you sell forklifts. Okay, forklifts and forklift accessories. Okay, well, how can we do that? How can we make a small change while we help you sell more forklifts? Gosh, I shouldn't have said forklifts, because we did have a client that sold that. And they weren't awful.
I don't even know how you would make forklift sales inclusive. That's the other thing I always think, and I'm curious about your thoughts. In a capitalist society, inclusive marketing will still be capitalist.
Yeah.
So we can make forklifts inclusive and representative and, all the stuff, but it still is selling forklifts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh gosh, how
Well, it's
I guess designer shots of the forklift angles.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, that's why I love working in marketing and sales, is because I get fascinated by pretty much whatever is the new thing that someone's showing me. So, yeah, someone's showing me the new model of a forklift that can do, can move pallets to a 37-degree angle rather than a 24-degree angle. And it doesn't need any more weight on the back to do that, John. I'm like, flipping heck, that's brilliant. Can we get the 50-year-old white driver off and
just swap someone out?
Stick a woman. Oh, I tell you, John, I've got another terrible inclusivity story.
Okay, go on.
Okay, we were working with an engineering company. Mm-hmm. We absolutely fixed them by having fixed their male chauvinist issues by having their account manager as an Asian, not as an Asian, she was an Asian woman. It was vegan, actually, so that probably got their goats.
Bunch of intersections, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, once presented with a human being that was of a different culture and a woman, they were like that. Oh, this is like talking to a normal human being. Yes, we're all the same. But anyway, before that, we said what they sold. Let me be careful. Plant. So yellow plants specifically. So diggers,
Okay.
cranes, and stuff like that. And they covered the whole country. They had a very specific market, and we helped them with a rebrand, staff engagement, using social media because their staff just didn't. They were all over the country in diggers, so we were getting them on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And we said, look, one of the problems we feel is every photo you've got, it's a guy who's covered in tats, which is fine. A lot of them were, covered in tats guys, in the cab of this whatever thing it is you're trying to flog in the JCB or whatever. It wasn't JCBs, but it was stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they were like that. Yeah, we're like that. What would be really cool is if we got some people of colour and some women in those shots, because there are women work on building sites, lads, and there are plenty of people of colour who work on building sites. This isn't a great big leap. And they were like that. Oh right, yeah, okay. And then in the board meeting, about half an hour later, the chairman said, "I've got an idea for women in our photographs. Why don't we get one in a bikini in the bucket of the thing?" And like everybody laughed, and yeah, I laughed because I was like,
"This is ridiculous."
This is ridiculous, and if I don't laugh, they're going to take me outside and bully me. And I was like, that dude, I really don't think we can't do that. And so that, I appreciate your trying. We had another.
To their point, though, that is an example of an attempt at inclusive marketing, but just really fucking bad.
Yeah, it's a swing and a miss.
It's just like, I do say that you can implement inclusive marketing without a diverse company, but it sounds like that would be what you would come up with.
Well, to their credit, their HR manager, they realised they had a problem with it when we had a couple of conversations like that. One where I absolutely lost my shit. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, I had to use the phrase, "You've got fucking daughters, and that's how you're speaking about people in your employ." And wow. Yeah. Oh man, I forgot how many arguments I had with people.
It seems like you've been doing a lot of arguing. These are not the things I hear, and this is why I love talking to you, John, because I hear the things that happen when I'm not in the room, because I know as soon as I step in the room, one of two things will happen, particularly with older white men. They will tell me they have a daughter, or they will tell me they grew up working class. One, I can bet money on it, and then they will then just nod along to everything I talk about with inclusive marketing. And I'm like, I want to know how you really feel. I want to know what campaign will you create that, and then we can work backwards. Tell me you're going to create a campaign where you put a woman in a bikini to sell a tractor, so we can figure out why you thought that was a good idea and deconstruct it to make it a good marketing plan.
That would be really cool. Yeah, the trouble is they'd never present it to you.
They would never say it.
They'd be like that. This is the one we need to show her. We know we're going to go with this one, option B, but we need to show her option A because Mrs. Someone made us pay for an inclusivity thing. But yeah, the company I'm talking about, or was talking about, their HR manager is, their HR director is female and of Asian heritage, which is a huge turnaround from where they were. And I don't think I made that change. I think there were a lot of external factors. But yeah, probably need to give them some props after. So I'm glad I didn't mention their names. Yeah.
Part of me will want to search on the ASA website to see if they had anything pulled in the past couple of years, but
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't. The closest thing we did for them that would have done that was our idea, and it was I don't know how good this is, but it was a really, really good reference to cocaine. And we and they were like that. That is incredible work. Not only was it banner adverts, they made it bumper stickers. It was brilliant work. But yeah.
This is definitely our most non-child friendly episode ever.
Oh no.
Not that that is our target market at all.
Thank
But if
goodness.
you are listening to this podcast with your kids around while you're working, don't.
It wasn't glorifying the taking of drugs.
It-
It was referring to them. Oh gosh, no, I'm just going to stop digging this hole.
But no, you touched on an element of what I love about marketing, the rabbit holes we get to go into as marketeers and to just like learn about all these areas and all these things that you wouldn't think to Google search because it wouldn't cross your mind to want to even watch a documentary. I wouldn't watch a good documentary about diggers, but I will try and think of a creative campaign. I am thinking of creative campaigns right now.
Yeah.
Can't help it. But it's such a fun job.
Yeah. 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 That is the tragedy and joy of it, is that if you're into it, you immediately think, oh, you know what? You could do X and it would help sell those things. Yeah. Yeah.
A quick area I wanted might be quick, might not be. I know you dabble in AI and dabble in some of the areas. What are
Very
your
dabbly.
thoughts on how it's impacting the marketing sector? If you specifically SEO, maybe, but in general.
Yeah, there's some things I really like about it. Is that this isn't an SEO thing, but I wanted an image for a post that Noisy Little Monkey put out end of last year, and the image didn't exist, so I got AI to deliver it to me, and the prompt was along the lines of black woman with a smiling, uplifted face and eyes closed and pink hair. And I got like 4 or 5 versions of them. You could not tell that this wasn't something, because I didn't have a photo that represented what I wanted. And all of course, unless you go to your image library, all of the image libraries, I mean, they're better now, but they were also, and I wanted it on a pink background. That was the other thing. All of the images, unless they're, I mean, there used to be the meme of it was just ladies laughing at salad, right? That was what all
still is.
Stock photo was. Yeah. And now it's, Asian woman with a clipboard, or, multiracial people sat around a laptop that's clearly not on. Have you seen
the fist bumps where it's just a bunch of different shade of hands?
Particularly when they're in that shape where they're a star. Like, no one fist bumps like that.
It's my favorite worst one. Oh, there's one, and I do love them, and they have some good images, but people continuously use this image of a black woman holding a laptop outside a server room. And I'm like, no one in tech will stand next to a server room holding the laptop like that to type.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So that was the only ones I could find, and I wanted something vaguely arty. And Mid-Journey made it for me after a few attempts, and it was beautiful. And you couldn't tell it wasn't a real person. I mean, because I said no hands, because as soon as you let it show hands, then there's weirdness. But it was a neck up shot. It's really lovely. So I really like it for that. I like it for that you can use it to create imagery that perhaps to support stories that perhaps otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. You have to be kind of like me, I guess, in being like reasonably blunt about what you want, because I think and I do feel a little bit of terror going, oh, I asked for it to be a black woman when I'm
really,
putting it out there. Yeah, because like it feels like I'm othering somehow. And I'm obviously I'm having to a certain extent to get what I need or what I want to look inclusive. So yeah, there's still a little bit of worry about it. So I think people would be somewhat scared of doing that sometimes. But yeah, I've used it for. Yeah, I love that because you can create inclusive imagery where none exists yet, and thankfully, if you've got budget, you can simply do that by employing an inclusive range of models and all of that kind of stuff. And that's becoming, almost. And I I want to say fashionable in that, and
No, but it
that's
is.
great, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And so that most of that fashionable stuff is just people paying lip service to it because they're going to get a kicking. But who fucking cares if it makes the change?
Yeah.
If this is where we stay, great. Well, that's
As
great.
long as
Okay.
we get this thing started, I don't
Yeah.
mind the cheesy stock photos as long as we eventually make some good ones.
Yeah.
Like, if
And
you're
as
going to
long as
do...
people with budget start putting diverse people in their photos.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go on. I was getting excited.
I know, I was curious on the fear of being direct in the prompt. So when you were searching for stock photos, were you not using the same direct, like,
Yeah.
black woman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was specifically asking for different cultures or different coloured skin, and I was just getting nothing apart from Asian lady with clipboard and black woman standing outside server room. But I didn't search for that. I searched for guitar. No, yeah. So it just feels a bit. It feels a bit alien when you're typing. It feels a bit like
So
transgressive in some small way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and then from an SEO standpoint, I think it will enable more people to get from a blank page to content as it becomes more and more widely used. I think there's a couple of things that I would suggest to people when they're or recommend to people and have recommended to people. One is you aren't going to be giving an opinion of your own because ChatGPT is okay, it's just had an update, but it's still using old opinions and it's finding someone else's. And if you use Bard or whatever to create that stuff, which is the one my other go-to, well, that's just using the internet to tell you to inform it. So you're not going to give it your opinion. So okay, it might be good for how-tos, but most people are producing content that they've got a unique way to do things. So I think it's really good to get you from the blank page, but you absolutely must put your brand or your personality on it. Otherwise, and your unique take on things. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to serve you in the way that you hope it serves you. It might get lots of traffic, but it won't turn into conversions. Maybe.
Because I have heard, and I was curious to know, I have heard thoughts on Google downranking anything that's thought to be written by AI on a web page. I don't know how true that is.
It's going to get better at spotting it, but at the moment, I don't think it can spot it.
Okay.
So I haven't really been listening for the last 2 or 3 months. I'm off of Twitter. It's like being unshackled from a maniac. X? Oh yeah.
Sorry.
I came off it before it was X. I'm still on it, but I just don't use it, and it's been a joy. So I haven't really been listening into those SEO conversations. But the last thing I heard from John Muller, who's one of the Google search liaison guys, he was saying at the moment we would recommend that you don't simply use it, but there's no penalty if you do. And I think that's probably because they can't tell what's AI written and what's not. It can tell what's not accurate because it's got a library of all of the knowledge on the internet, so it can tell if it's inaccurate, but I don't think it can necessarily tell. And I was speaking to a guy, I can't remember his name, but he runs a successful SEO agency, bit pilot high and sell it cheap. So it's probably a good idea. I can't remember his name. And he was saying that they're doing tests and they feed ChatGPT back into itself and say, which of these is written by ChatGPT and give it 4 or 5 articles that it wrote in the same conversation thread. And it's only spotting about 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 that may have been written by AI, and they're not changing. Like they're starting a conversation up here going, write me 10 articles on X. They feed those articles back in the next thing and say which ones were written by AI. So I don't think it's very easy to spot the thing, but Google will get better at spotting it because it trains its algorithms using humans all over the world. So eventually, and you and I can spot AI written stuff pretty quickly. So
really
we're gonna help it learn. But one of the things that Steve Mitchell, Noisy Little Monkeys head of SEO, as was now over at our friends at Spider Group as their head of SEO, one of his things and what I called his God prompt was, when you've written something with ChatGPT or Bard, feed it back in and say, what in this document has the footprint that it was written by AI. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
good at spotting that. And it says these look like generalization. It's a bit too over enthusiastic here. And the language is a bit clunky here. And so then he says, rewrite it so that it doesn't rewrite those portions so they don't look like they've been written by AI. That is so good that I've used that on a couple of legal contracts where I've rewritten clauses.
That's an interesting prompt. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it's really good.
It can tell the tone and the tone of voice. It can tell, and I'm calling it an AI tone of voice, which is like a super excited puppy that will jump at air. Like if it sees a sparkle, it's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like every word has like 3 words to say how excited it is about that word. Is the AI tone of voice. But okay, yeah, that's interesting. On the AI aspect, comes from one of my favorite segments of the podcast is we're going to make an inclusive campaign.
Okay.
So somewhat recently, our favorite platform, HubSpot, have integrated AI into HubSpot.
Yeah.
You can make an inclusive campaign talking about that.
Okay.
Or I can see that you are a book lover.
No, my wife's a book lover.
Snap. I was going to take the credit for that.
No, sorry.
Right. Or we could make a campaign to make TikTok trendy for Gen X. Still inclusive representation.
Because I'm like that. Well, hang on a second. Most of my friends who get on TikTok are like that. You know what? It's just girls with their boobs nearly out. I wonder why that is. You know, if you dwell on a video, Dave, it's going to bring you more videos like that. Oh, sorry.
Those are your choices. We can explore making an inclusive campaign for either one.
Well, HubSpot feels like it's easy because they're really trying, aren't they? And, you know, founded by a guy of Asian heritage, or 50% founded by, oh gosh, I can't remember his name, but then I can't remember the other guy's name. And yeah, but how do you make AI? Okay. Yeah, I like the HubSpot one actually because it's AI.
One?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because HubSpot is really good in terms of their brand voice and so forth. Think about the target market is a marketer who's never heard of HubSpot.
Okay, cool.
You've got video, 30 seconds, non-skippable ad on YouTube.
Oh, this is great.
What campaign are you pulling together to represent HubSpot AI and make it feel inclusive?
So I think the hook is that you get it to write emails or blogs, and probably emails because it can do that. I don't think I'm doing the normal marketing thing of we make it so that it makes the whole strategy.
We pull it can make a pie in 80 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure out that later. But yes.
Yeah, that's something for the product team to worry about. But yeah, so you can get it to write. So I'd have the thing be like a screen of tell me what subject to write. Tell me what you want to write about, and I'll give you a subject line, and I'll write the email for you, and I'll translate it into several different languages. That would be a plugin. So let's not say that because but you could do that because that's available with another plugin on HubSpot. So I think that might be the way to that's the hook, I think.
Okay.
Making it inclusive. I like the idea of HubSpot are already really good at using people from all different heritages in their imagery. What I think they're not, so that's great. Okay, I sound like I'm about to knock them, but I'm not. So, Dharmesh, that's the founder of HubSpot. Lovely guy.
Are we putting him in the commercial?
We could. I mean, he's but yeah, I don't. He doesn't do anything apart from do their big talks. I've got a photo of me with him somewhere. He's a billionaire, and it was the only person I've ever taken a selfie with. Like I've walked past other famous people, but I was like, that. Wow, it's Dharmesh. Can I have
You're
a photo
such a
with you?
nerd. I'm
Well, and
sorry.
it's just two really nerdy people horrified at what's happened.
Oh, gosh.
It's great. Anyway,
So starting the ad on a shot of someone's email,
yeah,
and they're integrated. They're engaging with HubSpot AI.
yeah, yeah, and then pull back their. Let's have them sat at their. So then we have them do a rewrite that says rewrite this to use less abbreviations and more clear language because it's an
Ooh.
AI. So you can ask it to do that because some people struggle with abbreviations. Certainly, I know my nephew who's profoundly dyslexic, just is appalling at that stuff. So making stuff simple for people who struggle with that. Then I think I'd probably use less abbreviations, make it simpler language, make it punchy. You need that kind of marketing stuff. So use our brand colors, but use them in a way that is accessible and inclusive. So you can ask it to do those three things. And I think I mean, this is really hackneyed, but I think I'd have that pullback and you've got people of different disabilities, people with different disabilities being part of the marketing crew, because not that it doesn't have to just be like the person in a wheelchair, but I think that's one of the things that most businesses are missing is that we're doing really well with people of color and we're doing much better with accessibility, but we pay a lot of lip service to people with disabilities, and that we're inclusive, but there isn't. That's still quite a way back. So having an intersectional set of people.
I think I see it.
High-fiving or whatever it is.
No, they're not high-fiving. Okay, no. I see it. They're not fist bumping either.
In a star shape.
The shot opens with a very icky, horrible, really like old school email campaign that just looks everything wrong. And then you see someone's hand on the keyboard, and it could be a woman's hands, let's say nails done, fair skin tone, typing away and typing to HubSpot AI to improve it. Sends it, so the camera pulls out and there's a smile on her face. We see her. Then we see the email go, and it goes to someone else in the marketing team who also uses HubSpot. They have just finished sign languaging to someone else on the team. They look at it and then they type and say, oh, the color contrast is off. And it edits it. And then we see the email become inclusive as it's pinging around different people interacting with the AI / making the thing more inclusive. Yeah. So you get the people and you get the AI. Yeah. I see it.
That's a much better idea. Let's do that one.
HubSpot, if you want. No, but I think that's a good one because I think the representation of non-visible disabilities is something that we don't see in marketing for marketeers.
Yeah.
Because there's marketing for general public, but marketing for marketeers, we never see that. It is the woman in the wheelchair, it is like the very blatant generic stuff, but someone who is hard of hearing can do marketing. It's not a far-fetched thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, I haven't tried HubSpot AI yet. I've just sold myself on it. Don't even know if it can do those things.
Well, so it does. Yeah, no, it uses ChatGPT, so it would do a lot of those things. It is a bit more restricted, but Dharmesh made it, so it's good. It's like early HubSpot. It's like, oh, this is the good stuff.
I am officially declaring you, if you didn't know before, a marketing nerd.
Yeah,
Hard,
definitely that.
hardcore marketing nerd. Okay,
I like
thank.
turn-based strategy games and marketing.
Oh gosh,
Because you're trying to
but
round up and I'm just nattering.
I am trying to round up. Let the people know where they can find you on the internet, John.
Um, wow. At the moment, they can't because I'm not doing any social media. And let me tell you, friends, it's joyous.
Not
Um,
even LinkedIn.
oh, yeah, you can find me on that. Yeah. And I am on LinkedIn. Just look for Jon Payne on LinkedIn. And I think if you go linkedin.com/ Mr. MRJON Payne, Payne, you'll find me.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Marketing Made Inclusive podcast, John. This has been a merry-go-round of a conversation, but it's been really insightful to hear your perspective on how we can make marketing more inclusive from SEO, from teams, from working with clients. We've covered so much. And thank you for tuning in and listening to the Marketing Made Inclusive podcast. You can find me anywhere on the internet at Joyann Boyce. That is JoyannBoyce. All the links mentioned will be in the show notes. Tune in next week for all things inclusive marketing.